Okay, today we're going to look at how we can build a buffer array and then write that data that's in our buffer to a file. So oftentimes when we have instruments, we want to take some measurements from those instruments and attach them to the time at which they were taken or the number in the sequence at which they were taken, and then store that in a array of data that, when we're done capturing data, is going to be written to a file. And sometimes we want to limit the size of that array, but that gives us a problem that once the array fills up, we have no more room to put data. And so we build what's called a buffer. And so as that array fills up, when I get it completely filled and I want to add a new data entry, I delete the one at the end, the oldest one, and I attach the newest one at the front. And so I made a mock-up here of how this can work. And here we're going to display a simulated temperature and humidity. There will be some random number between 0 and 1. It won't actually look like a temperature in Fahrenheit or humidity in terms of a percentage. But they're just simulated inputs. And then we attach that to a number in the data sequence. And so you can watch what happens if I push play here. We see every half second this array attaches a new data point. So we're counting up 20, 22, 23. And then at some point, it will fill up and we'll get to the full array size, which in this case is 100. And then it will continue adding data, but it will be pulling the last one off the sequence. So when I click stop here, I'm going to get a prompt. It's over here. And so then I can give that file a name and call it something like I will save that file, and I can open that file. Let me just pull it up. So if I open that file in something like WordPad, I can see that I'm getting the number of the sample and then my two numbers here, 0.019 and 0.759. You can see those data points continue all the way down to 74. So I get from data point number 74 to data point number 173. That should be 100 data points because that's the size of my buffering array. Now, if I waited longer and this got to 174 or 650, it would be the most recent 100 measurements that would get written to my file. So in the next part, we're going to take a look at how we build that. So here I've got a brand new VI, and I know that I'm going to take data until I click the stop button. That's a good hint that I'm going to need a while loop. So go ahead and put a while loop in. And we know that we're going to have to put a stop button. And we're going to have to put an array into the while loop so that there's something to fill up. So we'll go in and from our array panel, we'll go to initialize array. So it says, create me an array and fill it with some number. So here we see dimension size, we see element, and we have our initialized array. Now our array, we want to have a sample number, a humidity, and a temperature. And then we want it to store some number of those measurements. So that first index is going to be the length, like the number of data samples that we want to store. So we'll go here. We can create a constant. Now let's say for our case, like in mine, we want to store 100 data samples. Now the second number, at this second input here, is how many columns we want. So that's going to be sample number, humidity, and temperature. So 3 columns. And this double here is going to be the value that we want to plug in all of our array elements to start off with. Some people will do 0. What I like to do is put in some number that I know I'm not going to see in my data, so that if I still see that number, something's broken. So I put in 999. Now if I see 999 anywhere in my file, I know something's broken. Okay, so now we need to get that array into our loop, and we're going to wire it, in this case, to something called build array. I'll show you what that does. We're going to go to array. We're going to go to build array here. And what we're going to do is, in our while loop, we're going to collect our first data sample, and then we're going to attach it to our array. And then once it's attached to the array, we're going to take the oldest sample off the end to make sure that it's still 100 samples long. So we're going to wire our initialized array into the second terminal of the build array. Remember, if you need more terminals, you just grab this here and drag it right down. So we're going to put our initialized array on bottom. And then now we need to build a 1x3 array that contains our sample number, our simulated temperature, and our simulated humidity. There we go. So I'm going to go to array. Sorry about that. We're going to use build array again. And this time I'm going to take 3 numbers and put it into one array. And that first number is going to be the sample number. Conveniently, that sample number is the same as the number of times we've gone through our while loop, so we can wire that right to the first. Now, technically, we should convert this integer to a double, because the humidity and temperature that we're going to put in are going to be doubles. And so, but you saw in my file that it runs fine. Best practice would be to change that. Then I'm going to insert, in our case, a simulated random number between 0 and 1. So let's see if I can find that. It is a numeric random number. I just copy and paste, get a new one, and I'll put this one in, put that one in, and I might want to create an indicator so that I can watch these data samples come in real time. So I'll call that one temperature. Oops. Grab this one, create an indicator. That little right-click create indicator is super helpful. Create indicator, create constant. Just saves you from having to go to the panel a bunch of times. Now, we put these together. So this is going to create our 1x3 array. And then we're going to wire that to the first terminal in our build array over here, where we're adding it to our initialized array. Okay, so we had a 100 by 3 array. We're adding a 1 by 3. So now our array should be 101 by 3. So we added the newest row. Now we need to clip off the oldest row. And so we're going to do that using a delete from array function. So I'm going to delete from array. I'm going to wire our array in. So this is the array that's coming in. And then we are going to tell it what row we want to delete. In this case, it's indexed by 0 as the first row, so the last row that we want to delete is row 100. The length that we want to delete is the whole row, all 3 columns. So create constant here, 3. So we'll just move these over so you can see the wires. Great. Now, this is the deleted portion. This is the array that is left once we delete. So I'm going to create an indicator here so that I can see that array as it fills up. 2, 3. And I won't show the whole thing, but maybe I'll show some of the columns. Now this is going to fill up really fast, so fast that we won't even really be able to watch it. And so you wouldn't do this in a normal setting where you were actually collecting data, or you might not do this. But in this case, we're going to add a weight. So let me just and we have the millisecond timer value and the milliseconds to wait. So we are going to create a constant here, and we'll just tell it to wait something like 500 milliseconds, which is kind of a long time, but it will allow us to watch it fill up. And then finally, we are going to wire this double also out to file write component. So we're going to put write delimited spreadsheet there. And we'll wire in. Now I only need to wire one terminal in, and then I'm done. There are a bunch of other terminals that we can wire here to set the delimiter, set the format of the number coming in, set the file path. If I don't set a file path, it will upload, it will give me a file dialog box like you saw where I can save it in. There's some error handling. all that stuff we can deal with later. We're just going to let it go right in and create a dialog box where we can save it. Now, one thing we have left to do is that we need to tell this here that every time we go back through the loop, we need to pass this array back in so that the same array that came out is going back in. Otherwise, we're not going to be overwriting our data. And so we right-click here, and we replace with a shift register. And that's what it's going to allow us to take that while loop, that array at the end of each iteration, and feed it back in. So we're not feeding the initialized array back in every time. So there we go. And now we're ready to run. We can see that, like I told you, we're getting 999 all the way through. So give me one quick second to figure out what I did wrong. So, like I said, we need that shift register, or we're just overwriting the first element every time. And you see I wired the shift register to my file output, but I didn't wire my input to the shift register that I created. So let's fix that. Oh gosh. Now we're stuck. Creative probe. That's all kinds of problems. There we go. Okay. So now let's see if we can fix this wiring issue. There we go. All right, so see we've got data filling up once every half second. And like all my videos, this one is going to be much longer than Professor McGinnis's. I don't know how she does them so fast and keeps them so informative, but there we go. So this was how to create a buffer array and write to a file. So next up.